Hello, my name is Yura and welcome to another Baldur's Gate 3 build video. In today's video I'll be showing you my Flaming Fist build, which will be a potentially pure Element of the Four Winds monk build, or you will have 1 to up to 4 levels of multi-class if we require some armor proficiencies, specifically if you will need to get the medium armor proficiency unless you have one of the races that has it naturally. This character will focus around dealing unarmed damage while also dealing with those unarmed strikes fire damage, which is also going to result because of our equipment in high spell save DC and attack rolls. Therefore, we would want to have a lot of spell scrolls and on top of our own spell casting that we get from our monk. Alright, so let's get into the character creation. So for your race, my suggestion would be either a Githyanki or a Shield Dwarf. Both of those sub-races or races have the medium armor proficiency, which we are going to require for our endgame armor. Until the early game, you can just wear a cloth and play as a normal monk, but if you prefer or want to take any other race, you will kind of have to get another multi-class, so preferably a fighter. But my suggestion would be, if you're going to go as a fighter, you might as well go 2 levels so that you get the action surge, but we'll get into that when we get to the rest of the levels. Okay, so for my example, I went with the Githyanki. Githyanki are quite nice because of their racial spells. They gain enhanced sleep at level 3 and level 5 to get Misty Step. But anyway, we get at level 1 Astral Knowledge. This gives us a proficiency in all skills of a chosen ability. So if we want to, we can have, for example, proficiency in all of Charisma skills if we are the main face of the party. Or of course, you can choose any of these other ones as well. Do mind, of course, this lasts until long rest. We also gain a cantrip, which is the Mage Hand. Basically just a Mage Hand that is invisible. Always nice to have. Then we have the standard racial speed of 30 feet, and of course martial prodigy, which gives us short, long, and great swords, and medium armor proficiency. And of course, because we have medium armor, we have that then light armor as well. Now per class at level 1, we are going as a monk. This gives us the flurry of blows, which is a bonus action attack that strikes twice with our fists. We gain unarmored defense. This will be useful for us until we get to the point where we wear medium armor. Dexterous attacks, this won't matter too much for us, as we will eventually stop being a normal monk and we will use elixirs to have our strength as our attack modifier. Death strikes is nice because this is going to increase our unarmed strikes from a 1d4 to a 1d6 and finally to 1d8. And then of course you will basically have always 2 attacks. One of them is a bonus action, and then when you get your extra attack you will have 3 attacks. If you don't use this, then it's going to be 4 attacks. Or unarmed attacks, to be specific. And of course, we use key points as our spellcasting resource. For our ability scores, this setup will be the one that we're going to be using after we get the Tavern Brawler feat. But before that, we're going to be playing just a standard monk, which is going to have a +2 dexterity and then +1 into Constitution or Wisdom. My suggestion would be Constitution so that you have a little bit more HP. But then we're going to crank up our dexterity to 17 so that we have higher initiative, greater melee effectiveness, and of course more armor. 16 Constitution again for HP, and then 14 Wisdom so that we get a little bit more armor class from Wisdom itself. And then the last 2 points you can put into Strength or Charisma. I'm just going to get them into Charisma. Then for the ability points after you get the Tavern Brawler, we're going to go like this. So we're going to put +2 into Wisdom, and then keep +1 into Constitution. We're gonna go 17 not Charisma, 17 Wisdom, 15 Constitution, 14 Dexterity, and 12 Charisma. So our Strength is a dump stat here because we're gonna be using elixirs of Heal and Cloud Giant Strength that are going to make it so that it's possible for us to work with the Tavern Brawler. Dexterity is here, namely so that we get +2 into Initiative and +2 into Armor class. Since we'll be using medium armor in the late game, we can only get a +2 in the armor anyway. With the armor we are using anyway. Constitution 15 is for the HP. Now we're going to be getting it to 16 with the Tavern Brawler, so don't need to worry that it is not a even number. Wisdom 17, we're going to be increasing that with Anti-Idol's Hair and the Mirror of Law so that we end up getting much higher spell save DC and attack rolls with our monk and scroll spells. And then Charisma 12, this is to help us with dialogue. You could put it into Intelligence, but honestly it's not really worth it since Intelligence is kind of... there's not that many saving throws that require Intelligence. And then for our skill proficiencies, I would leave acrobatics and athletics where they are. Stealth is not necessary for this character since we're wearing armor that gives you disadvantage and we don't have high stealth generally. And then religion and history are not really good since there aren't too many triggers for them, so I would avoid these two. I wouldn't take them, but you can if you want for your roleplay purpose, of course. For my background, I went with the Guild Artisan, which gives me persuasion and insight proficiency. You can, of course, go with any other background you may prefer. Guild Artisan one is just my favorite. Alright, so at level 2, we unlock the unarmored movement. Your movement speed is increased by 10 feet while you are not wearing armor or using a shield. This is useful for us until the point where we get to actually wear the armor that we have. So by the time we are a normal monk, this is going to be very handy. We also unlock our bonus actions such as spatial defense, which gives enemies disadvantage on attack rolls against you, and you have advantage in dexterity saving throws. We also gain a bonus action dash and disengage that each costs 1 key point. At level 3, we unlock the Flag Missiles, which reduces the damage of range weapon attacks by 1d10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your monk level. And if that range attack deals 0 damage, you can then use a key point to throw that missile back at the attacker. We unlock our racial spell of Githyanki Psionics Jump, which is the Enhanced Leap. We also unlock a subclass. Here we're going with the Way of the Four Elements. This gives us the Harmony of Fire and Water. While not in combat, regain half your key points, run it down. This is useful if you are in need of some key points, if you don't have any short rests. I generally didn't find myself in the need of this, although I did have a bard in this breakthrough, so it kinda... I had 4 basically, or well, 3 short rests, and then with this, I guess 3.5. We then also unlock our spellcasting, so we get the spells here. So for this, I would suggest taking the Fangs of the Fire Snake. This will give you 1d6 your basically unarmed strike damage plus 1d10 fire, and then for the rest of this turn, your unarmed strikes will deal additional 1d4 fire damage. So this will be our beginning fire damage boost for our unarmed strikes. We'll mostly use this primarily as our opening in combat. You can also take, what I would suggest is the Sweeping Cinder Strike, which is basically just burning hands with a different name, 3d6 fire damage in a cone. And then for the last spell, you can go with something like Fist of Unbroken Air, which pushes the target back 20 feet and makes it prone, or something like the Water Whip, which you can pull the target towards you or make it prone. You have a choice there, or something like even the meme of the Shaping of the Ice, which lets you create ice cubes. But I will be taking the Fist of Unbroken Air. At level 4, we unlock our Slow Fall feature, which just makes us resilient to falling damage. We also unlock our first feat, and here we're going, of course, with the Tavern Brawler, and we are taking the ability point assigned into Constitution to make it a nice 16. What Tavern Brawler does, when you make an unarmed strike, use an improvised weapon, or throw something, your strength modifier adds it twice to the damage and the attack rolls. So at this point, you can go and respec to the abilities points that we have right here, and then your main way of getting strength will be elixirs of Hill Giant Strength, which you can get a lot of from Auntie Ethel in Act 1 in the Druid Grove. So that they will be your main thing that is going to increase your strength. Your strength will be 21, so you will have a +5 modifier, and therefore with the Tavern Brawler, the damage you deal will be +10 because it's doubled, of course, and the attack rolls will also be a +10. Which is going to be quite powerful. Oh yeah, and you can still go around without wearing any armor, with like cloth, because you do get +2 and then a +3, so you will have a +5 armor, and then of course your wizards or sorcerers can cast mage armor on you as well. Although I should also mention that at level 4 or 5 you can deal with the Ethel, and there you can gain a +1 into any ability improvement. There I would suggest you get it into Wisdom, so you have it at 18. Therefore, then you'll have a +4 and +2, so +6 armor class. If you're still not wearing your armor, it is completely viable to go that way as well. But if you pick up medium armor, that still works for you. Alright, so at level 5, we unlock our extra attack. We also unlock Stunning Strike, Unarmed, and Melee. We also get our racial spell of Misty Step once per long rest, and we can move to level 6. Alright, so at level 6, if you are a race that does not have medium armor proficiency, this is where I would suggest you to start the multiclass. So here I would suggest either 2 or 4 levels of fighter. 2 levels will allow you to get action surge, and then 4 will allow you to get your feat back, or well, the third feat. If you do not care about the third feat, then you can just go 2 for the action surge, and then if you continue your monk levels, you will get some further benefits for your monk. So if you're a fighter, if you're going to multi-class here, your fighting style was just take defense. This is going to give you +1 to armor class, and it's going to help you be more tanky. You could take archery as well, but not really necessary. Defense works here perfectly fine. But since I am going to be staying as a monk, I'm going to stay as a level 6 monk. This will give us key empowered strikes, so our unarmed strikes are magical for the purpose of uncommon resistance and immunity to non-magical damage. Then we gain another additional spell. Here you have a choice between Clench of the North Wind or the Embrace of the Inferno. This is basically Scorching Rays, and this is just Hold Person with a different name. What I would suggest at this point is probably just take the Embrace of the Inferno. If you have a character with Hold Person already in the party, this is going to be a very powerful attack that can crit when you're standing next to them. And we can move to level 7. So as mentioned, if you're multi-classing a fighter, you would be a level 2 fighter, you will get your action surge. Otherwise, if you are going as a pure monk as I am, you will then get the stillness of mind. If you're charmed or frightened, you automatically cast stillness of mind to remove a condition. Although keep in mind, stillness of mind is an action, so you would lose an action for that turn, but you still have your bonus action, of course. We also have the evasion. Your agility lets you dodge out of the way of certain spells. When a spell or effect would deal half damage on a successful dexterity saving throw, it deals no damage if you succeed and only half damage if you fail. So what this does is basically this is how monks are able to take 0 damage from fireballs. Level 8. So at level 8, I would suggest you to go back to monk so that you get your key empowered strikes, which give you magical damage on your fists. We're gonna be going back to fighter at level 11 and 12 if you want to get those 4 fighter levels, but for level 8 we're going back to monk. And here, since we are sticking to monk, we get our feat. So if you're multi-classing, you will get your feat 2 levels later, but that is completely fine. So for our second feat, we're going with ability improvement +2 into wisdom. Since I'm gonna assume you took Anti-Edel's hair, you would then have 20 wisdom here, which will give you additional armor class, which will be a +5 if you're still running the cloth, or if you acquire this armor, then it won't do much further and give you spell save DC and attack rolls. But then later on, basically at the very beginning of Act 3, you will get the boots that give you bonus unarmed strike damage from your wisdom. So that's still useful to have high wisdom on top of having, of course, better spellcasting. At level 9, we are continuing our monk, and here we get the advanced unarmored movement. Now this won't do anything for me since I'm wearing armor at this point, but if you're not, this will give you basically difficult terrain doesn't slow you down, and you can jump additional 20 feet if you're not wearing armor or using a shield. We also get the improved elemental casting, so this is going to just buff our elemental spells. For example, Clench of the North Wind, or also known as Hold Person, can be cast on 2 persons instead of 1, and adds an additional damage die to the Embrace of the Inferno. Also gain a spell here, and speaking of the Hold Person, we're gonna get it here, so now we can cast it on 2 characters at the same time. At level 10, we unlock the Purity of Body. We are immune to poison and can be poisoned. We also gain improved unarmored movement, which increases our speed by 20 feet if we're not wearing armor or using a shield. But again, for me, it won't do much. And if you are going to multi-class the next level to continue to finish off the 4 fighter levels, you would then have just go 2 fighter levels here. You would now at this point unlock your subclass, and I would suggest going with champion or battle master. Though keep in mind, battle master, you would only be able to use your maneuvers with your ranged weapon. So my suggestion, probably just take the champion, so you crit on a 19 instead of a 20. But yeah, either one of them would work. But since I'm going, of course, monk, we get our 3rd level spellcasting here. And of course, here we're taking Flames of the Phoenix, which is basically just a monk version of a fireball. And finally, at level 12, we get our 3rd and last feat. And here, I will suggest you to take the Elemental Adept. So if you're multi-classing this, you're going to get that feat regardless. And here, of course, we're taking Elemental Adept Fire. So now, spells you cast and attacks you make ignore resistance to fire. In addition, when you deal fire damage with a spell, you can roll 1. So this is going to help us deal our full fire damage against enemies that are resilient to fire. The only ones that are going to be immune to it, of course, is enemies that are immune to fire damage. But again, if you choose to go 2 levels fighter, you will not get this feat. And it's not too much of a big deal, but it is nice to be able to deal full fire damage against enemies like the Cambions in a certain boss fight, which for some reason are not immune to fire damage, only resistant to it. But anyway, that is it for the levels. I will now see you in the not combat showcase, the equipment section. Alright, so here we are in the equipment section. So let's start with our headgear. We're going with the Hat of Fire Acuity. Whenever you deal fire damage, you gain Arcane Acuity for 2 turns. Arcane Acuity gives you a +1 to spell save DC and attack rolls for each turn remaining. So if you get 2, you get +2, and if you get a maximum of 10, it's a +10. So speaking of that, your spell save DC and attack rolls can get quite ridiculous. Now, for our monk, it doesn't actually show the spell save DC, so we have to do the math. But the flat amount is 8. Plus our proficiency, which is 4, so it's 12, and then plus this 6 is 18. So we can have a total of 28 spell save DC and attack rolls, which is almost impossible to resist. This is, of course, I have 22 here because of from Mother Superior's memory from the Mirror of Loss. So 28. Because of that, I would suggest you heavily take also a bunch of these various spell scrolls that have various crowd control effects on them, because it's going to be really hard for enemies to actually resist against them, since our spellcasting as a monk generally is very limiting, since we're focusing mostly on fire damage and the Slunge of the North Wind. So this hat allows you to have a quite powerful spellcaster and also a powerful melee combatant. For the cloak, we're going with the Cinder Moth Cloak. The creature that damages the wearer within 7 feet receives burning. Now this does have a saving throw, unfortunately, but it's still nice if the enemies do fail the saving throw, since they do get caught on fire. For the armor, we're going with the Flame Enameled Armor. You get +2 bonus to your initiative rolls, you're also resistant to fire damage and have +2 bonus to saving throws, and you gain a Fire Shield Warm once per long rest. For the other game alternative, you can wear the Infernal Robe. This is what you would wear as a monk until to the point where you get your medium and heavy armor proficiency if you're multiclassing, or if you're one of the mentioned races that have it from the beginning, then you can basically take the medium armor from the start, even though this is actually a quite nice armor regardless. It gives you a Fire Shield Warm once per long rest as a bonus action, +1 to your armor class, and you're also resistant to fire damage. Now for the other late game alternative, you can take the Balsant Plate of the Marshal. All incoming damage is reduced by 2, you have resistance to fire damage and +2 bonus to saving throws, and you also get Fire Shield, so you can choose cold or warm. You have also disadvantage spell checks. So in the late game, if you have heavy armor proficiency, if you're multiclassed, it is up to you which one of these two you will take. Of course, this one will give you 1 armor class more, but since it is, of course, heavy armor, you will not get any dexterity bonuses from it. I prefer the Flame Enameled Armor because it gains +2 bonus to initiative rolls. For the gloves, we're going with the gloves of Cinder and Sizzle. Your Arnhem attacks deal additional 1d4 fire damage, so this is going to, of course, be the thing that's going to help us stack Arcane Acuity with every single attack. This also gives us the Scorching Ray once per long rest. This is an upcasted version of Scorching Ray, since it fires 4 fire rays instead of 3. For boots, we're going boots of Uninhibited Kushigo. The wearer deals additional damage equal to their Wisdom modifier with unarmed strikes, so this is going to give us additional 6 damage with our unarmed strikes. For the alternatives, if for some reason you do not have the boots of Uninhibited Kushigo, then take the Silver Sea shoes, which increase your jumping distance by 5. This is going to help your mobility, but again, since we have, 21 or 27 strength, our jumping distance will be quite ridiculous. For the amulet, I'm going with the Sentient Amulet. This gives you once per long rest Shatter. This is basically just an AoE damage that creatures made of inner guiding materials have disadvantage on this. Since you will have a high spell save DC, odds are you will deal almost full damage with it, but the reason we are taking it is because of the key restoration. Using the spiritual energy in the amulet, you restore a number of key points equal to your martial arts die. Now, I'm not sure what this exactly means. I think this is just basically same thing as the Harmony of Fire and Water. It restores half your key points. If somebody knows exactly what this means, please feel free to correct me in the comment section, but I just noticed that this restores half your key points regardless. For the rings, we're going with the Ring of Reaction. You ignore the effects of difficult terrain, you can be paralyzed or restrained. We namely want this for the immunity to paralyzed and restrained, since actually we get this effect, the ignore difficulty in effects of difficult terrain, if we wear no armor, but since we are wearing it, we actually need this ring for this as well. The second ring we have here is the Crusher's Ring, 10 feet, movement speed plus 10 feet. The alternatives you could take is the Ring of Protection, armor class, saving throws +1. For the weapons, we have none, of course. Our arms are our weapons. And then for the ranged weapons, we have the Hellrider Longbow. Gain +2 initiative and advantage on perception ability checks. Once per turn, a creature hit by this weapon will possibly afflicted with Fairy Fire. Now, we're not proficient with it because we namely want this weapon as a stat stick, not as an actual weapon. And then for example, right, I mentioned before, spell scrolls you would want. Also, your elemental that with fire will make your arrows of fire, squidgens, or even the what do you call them, alchemist fire ignore fire resistances. So I would suggest running with these as well. I think even something like the Orthon bombs as well, or the sanguine explosives, which you do not have here, since you only get, I believe, 4 per long rest. But anyway, that is it for the equipment section. I will now see you in the combat showcase. Alright, so here we are at the Flaming Fists barracks for yet another battle showcase. So before combat started, I did drink an elixir of Cloud Giant Strength to increase our strength to 27. Since this character does rely on these strength elixirs to gain our strength benefits from. Another thing that I should mention you should potentially get is the Unstable Blood. Your blood is now highly flammable when explode in contact with fire. So you get this from the Blood Merchant in Act 3 if you helped her in Act 2, or if you donated her blood in Act 2. What this does is basically whenever you take damage, you create a pool of unstable blood, which is then flammable. But anyway, for opening combat with this character, if you want to cast a spell, my suggested combo would be Flurry of Blows on a target to generate some arcane acuity, and then casting either Clench of the North Winds, which now it can target 2 characters, or if you have spell scrolls of Confusion and Hypnotic Pattern. Those are like big AoE spells that somebody like these, basically just fighters, have almost no chance of success, but somebody like clerics and wizards will have a decent chance of success right now. But once we get our arcane acuity to 10, which is quite easy, pretty much everybody will be prone to just straight up failing the saves. So since I don't have those spell scrolls, let's just use Clench of the North Wind. Reason you want to disable people on their first turn of combat is so that they cannot really, you don't want to give them a chance to attack you, because every time you take damage you lose 2 turns of arcane acuity every time you take damage. So that's a good way of ensuring that, for example, these 2 guys won't be able to attack us. If you do not want to cast a spell, you can just keep on smacking people, so then we would have up to 8 arcane acuity, and the next turn we can basically get our full 10 stacks with Flurry of Blows, and then cast a maximum difficulty class spell that we can get. Okay, so that is it for the build. I hope you enjoyed. I appreciate it if you leave the like and subscribe for more Baldur's Gate 3 content, and I'll see you in the next one.